Hello everyone and welcome back to KitbashCarnage. So as you can see in front of me, I have some plastic card and a few bits, some paper clips, a bit of trash we have in our little trash box, a few just random stuff, some green stuff. So basically we're going to try and make, with all these bits and leftover casts and stuff, we're going to try and make a kind of a Land Raider / Baneblade twist kind of. Basically we're making a tank for our army, the Mutant Bearers of Faith, based on the Word Bearers faction chaos. So we're just gonna put all these together and see what we come out with. Hopefully it's something that resembles a tank. So as you see here, I sped up this footage just to make it easier on all of us. So yeah, as you can see, I wanted a Baneblade, then I wanted a Land Raider, and then I said let's just make a contraption of both. So I'm basically using these leftover bits from Chaos, or as normal Space Marines, Rhino. I think it's a Rhino. I'm very sorry guys for not knowing all these bits. I'm not the type of kitbasher that knows the names of every single bit that I use. That's just how I am. Call it lazy or just call it lack of knowledge, but I call it liking to kitbash and make stuff, but not knowing or having enough time for the lore. Like, I will eventually get into all that, but I'm starting this new job recently and everything else, life on top of it, listening to the lore on top of other stuff, be it podcasts and YouTubers that I want to watch. I just prioritize what I want to do. So and the lore of this really isn't on my highest priority at the moment. I do apologize for anyone who is really into the lore. I will eventually get into it, and do correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on a lot of this stuff, be it like certain models, characters, heroes, or bits. I'll try to give as much information at the time as I can, but sometimes I would be good to have more information, but sometimes I just don't. Not that I don't bother, I just forget. So apologies. So as you see here, we're basically just sticking some plaster card on. We're trying to build out the hull, the frame of the tank that we're trying to build here. So as you've seen, we just strapped what I'm calling a Rhino chassis kind of to it, and then we're expanding where the tracks would be normally on this model here. We're expanding that outwards widthways in order to give it a bit more girth, because my plan was to add more tracks at the back. In order to do that, we need to build the body a bit more wider. Also, the Land Raider / Baneblade we're kind of working on here, or working off of the pictures. That's the basis we're going on, and that itself, them models are much more wider than a Rhino would be. So that's why we're just expanding the chassis here. So we're marking off our plastic cards. These are just normal plastic cards, basically. They're like blanks you use for like ID cards or credit cards, stuff like that. Apart from they don't have that magnetic strip thing and chips and all that, whatever it is inside of it. So you get these online. You got a pack of 200 or 100 or something for like £10 or something like that. So they're not too bad, but expensive enough. Since this, I've made a giant jar of sprue glue, and I'm just making sheets off of that. Also, you'll see later on in the video, I've recently got a 3D printer, so lots of projects to come with that. And I've had a few failed prints, so there's been some sheets that have just been printed off, and not the rest. I've stopped the printing process just to save the filament or whatever it is. So you'll see later on we have some sheets that we'll use in order to make this project that we're doing here. So just using a lot of super glue here. I go through so much super glue. Yeah, more glue. Here we go. There's so much super glue. I think I don't even want to count. I should have went back and during the editing and counted how many super glue things I used, but it's too many. I usually buy these in like sets of 24. They're like 1.5 milligram whatever bottles. They're just one-time use type things. They do the job, and then along with some PVA and hot glue gun, we just get the job done. So that as long as you can get the job done, that's what we're about on this channel. So just adding extra bits of plasticard and other bits of the tank that we just find in the bits below us there. We're just trying to build more texture and detail onto this here, just in order to give the whole figure and the whole model, the tank itself, a more mechanical look. Because if we left just the plasticard, the flat plasticard, it would look made. If that made like handmade, it wouldn't look realistic. So adding little bits of plasticard here and there just to give different lines, vertical lines, horizontal lines, it gives definition to the model itself. And then adding bits like this that you get from kits also adds that little bit extra detail. So as you've seen there, I was going to cut them bits off the end, but I just thought, why not just leave them there? They can act as like some type of metal overhang. I could do something with it later down the line. Anything, you know, there's no point cutting it off now and then later on needing to stick something back on. I might as well, it's not getting in the way now, leave them there now, and if we can use it down the line, we'll use it. If we don't, we'll cut it off then when we don't need it and it gets in the way. So in order to give the look that the hatch here can open and hide the way the hinges aren't actually attached to the body in any way, we're making this effect by sticking thin bits of plastic card along the edge. That will give the looks of, or I'm hoping it will give the looks that these doors actually open up, and then something can either come in or out of the top of it. So it's like a barrier, like a boundary kind of mark that I'm trying to use with this plastic card here. And apologies for saying so much. I have noticed that that's what I say, but it is what it is. So continuing to add more bits of plastic card when we see fit, just hiding up the seams. It's helping just to hide that gap. We had to, as you seen, or if you didn't see, I don't know, hopefully you didn't miss it, getting distracted from my rambling, but we stuck a little bit of plastic card underneath these kind of doors. That was to raise it that little bit extra because the hinges were sticking above and it was seeping in. I hope this all makes sense to you. So now we're trying to hide the crime there from it seeping in and lifting it up, like lifting the bed of it up to make it flat, and also create that effect that these doors can open outwards or inwards or some type of way, like they're functional doors and they're not just actually stuck on. Now sticking these side panels here was something that I would say would be a little bit of a challenge for me at this point. So as you see, I just kind of skipped over that. I went to stick it on and then I was like, nope, we're gonna skip that part. Let's do this part first because it's much smaller and much more easier to, I would say, finesse, but like just get right, and then we can work on the side panels. So this is kind of like a stepping stone to doing the side panels here. So I'm just trying to line up the bottom. I don't think this is meant exactly for this chassis, this front part, but I'm just trying to line up that line there. As you can see, the way it goes across, up, and then across again. I'm trying to line that up with the bottom of the line for the chassis on the two side parts. I hope all this makes sense, guys and girls, whoever watches. But then I'm also trying to not stick the shutters closed so they can open and close again. And then you see here I'm sticking more plastic card at the back because you're not going to see this, it's going to be all enclosed. So I'm sticking that at the back just to help support this while it's sticking, because I thought that it was a little bit of a tight fit, so the glue alone I didn't think would hold it if I tapped off it. So I stuck that plastic card just to give it that more support, give me peace of mind more or less than anything else. Also sticking this little piece of plastic card here just to hide that seam. I would have had to have gone back and hide this another different way, But by doing this, it just saves me from going and doing something else down the line. It's a finishing a step. Sometimes you can think ahead by doing stuff like this. Like I said, by not cutting off the back of the plastic there, it can work out for you, or it can go terribly wrong and it can interfere down the line. But this is what the KitbashCarnage channel is all about. It's just about working on the fly. I don't really plan out too much of it. I try to actually plan out as little as possible because I enjoy the whole process, the making process, figuring stuff out on the fly. I just find that it's one of the fun parts for me in this whole hobby that I'm into. So we stuck that front panel on there, and then we're moving on to the side panels. So you see, I just stuck one panel together, first holding it very carefully with some super glue, and then as soon as I thought that was supported enough, I moved to the second panel, and then while that one was quickly setting, I got some skewer wires. They're like wooden skewer wires for like a barbecue or something. I just had them lying around in my hobby box. Took them out, cut them to size, and used them for support kind of beams for either side of the tracks. And this just adds more support, making sure that if I lifting it up and down, because I'm quite heavy handed, so if I lifting it up and down or even resting it in somewhere, or if I knock off it, the tracks aren't going to collapse in on themselves and ruin the whole thing that I've just made. So it's kind of like bulletproofing my own negligence in that kind of way, and just giving extra support to the model itself, because if these weren't here, what we use to cover up the bottom of the whole tank of this whole model would be the only support from getting crushed that this would have, along with obviously the top of it. But a lot of the top isn't, like the roof of this tank isn't attached in a way that would support it from being crushed. It's kind of just resting on top. So right now, before we put the wooden skewers in, it was very fragile, and now adding the wooden skewers and everything else we're going to do to the project would add more stability to the whole model in a whole, or as a whole, shall I say. I'm not going to edit any of that, just so you know just how badly I talk in these videos. I do apologize. Thank you very much for sticking by. Please put your 2 hands up. I'll do this again. I've done this once in the video, but if you stuck around this long, I know we're only like 13 minutes in, but stick a 2 hands emoji up in the comments, and that lets me know that you're sticking around in the videos and listening to me rambling, even though I would fast forward all this waffling, to be honest. So at the back here, to give it more stability, we're getting 2 bits of plastic card, and you've seen there we cut 2 slits, or a slit in each card, and then we're sliding that down onto the back of the 2 walls of the whole chassis of the tank, and this is then giving support into the back of the tank. So along with the skewers at the front and the plastic card at the back, that hopefully gives enough support from being crushed. And then this is the kind of failed print I was talking about, the 3D print kind of sheet. So it's a very thin piece of plastic basically, and instead of throwing this out, I keep all these leftover bits just randomly. It's basically rubbish, but we can make stuff from rubbish, like this right now. Like, here we go, this would have been thrown out, and I just cut it, and I'm sliding it in this little gap that there is here that just happened to be made from me using that plastic card as support. We're going to let that set with the hot glue gun. Now, doing this, I didn't realize that plastic melted with the heat from the hot glue gun, so I had to work quite fast and a little bit more fragile than I would have kind of worked. So we're sliding that in there and then letting the hot glue set, and then we're going to bend that around the actual chassis itself, and this is going to create the bottom of the tank, or some of the bottom of the tank, along with more of the sheet stuff that happened from another failed print. And then that's just, like I said, it's just going to encompass this whole bottom of the tank and giving us an actual model, not just 3 pieces of plastic stuck together with some kebab sticks. So just using them cuts that we made. I kind of knew that we're going to need to bend here, and if you cut like you see here, then it's easier to bend smaller pieces than it is to bend one bigger piece. I was gonna say in my line of work, in my experience from doing stuff like this previous to 15 years ago, I learned that bending certain pieces of plastic when you haven't worked with it before, you don't know how brittle it is or how malleable it is. So it's kind of good just to cut stuff down into smaller chunks, because if something then snaps, it's only going to snap that small chunk and you're left with the rest to work with. So this is also just thinking ahead a little bit. I've never worked with 3D model printing plastic before, so I wanted just to figure it out. I didn't want this to snap because I only had 2 sheets of this plastic stuff, so I wanted to still be able to use it. And this is the second sheet, as you see here, so this is a bit more rough, but we still managed to use it for what we need, where we just slide it in the back there and then use an excess amount of hot glue just to bridge the gaps. Hot glue, just remember, just be safe with the hot glue gun. You see me a lot of this times just using my finger to spread the hot glue, but please don't do what I do. Sometimes I neglect my safety, but I am experienced, so don't do anything I do. Please use PPE and safety equipment, and use your equipment the way it's supposed to be used. I'm not telling you how exactly to use it the way it's supposed to be used. This is how I use it. This is just a warning. So I found when doing stuff like this, bridging gaps or trying to stick plastic or anything basically to something but not have it resting on it. So if this makes any sense, guys, so basically that piece of black plastic was cut a little bit smaller than the piece I wanted to fill. Even if it wasn't, it's such a small delicate piece of plastic that just sticking a line of hot glue there wouldn't be enough. Actually having it string and build a bigger gap like we seen there when I was spreading the glue, that it makes a much better bond and holds the material in place much better than if you were to just have one continuous line of hot glue. That would be more likely to fail because there's less surface area that's holding on to the material. So this is basically it's a Pringles box of lids. So it's just a lids that I've collected over a while, whether it be plastic lids, metal lids, just all types of lids that I just collect, put in there. You can use these lids and corks for painting handles, or you can use them like I'm going to do now for bits for the tank. So just lots of different reasons. There's no point throwing stuff like this away. All I do is keep one Pringles tin full of lids, and I don't keep any more than that, and there you go. You know, when you need some type of round circular thing exactly this size, you go to your Pringles tin or whatever name brand or non-name brand, not affiliated and not sponsored by Pringles, it just happens to be a Pringles tin. Pringles, sponsor me if you want to, it'd be much appreciated. Free Pringles for everyone. But yeah, it's just a good storage thing. I'll just put all these lids inside of it, keep it to the side, and you never know. It's kind of a good way to hide more trash that you're collecting. If your partner was to come in and instead of seeing just lots of empty caps lying around, he just saw there's some Pringles. Oh yeah, bought them the other day. Just make sure they never go into them. So along with these bottle caps, we're going to use some of these other kind of track kind of bits, like the track wheels or the spokes or cogs, whatever you may call it. We're going to use them, and along with some lids to make the actual cogs or wheels that the tank would use to spin to track the tracks. I cannot speak English at all. So we're going to use these in order to make the rotating cogs or spokes or whatever you may call it that rotates the actual tracks or drives the tracks. So yeah, I'll let you just watch what I'm doing because I can't talk and tell you what I'm doing apparently. I really apologize, guys. I need to just maybe, I know, probably it's probably just a matter of me doing all this voiceovers and then going over and re-listening to everything. But this video is 40 minutes long, and for me to do that would take up a lot of my time, and it's time I don't have, and the time I do have I want to spend doing stuff like this and not listening to myself 3 or 4 times over. So bear with me, anything I say, take it with a grain of salt, and just remember that, yeah, you know, it's KitbashCarnage here, and that goes for the projects we do and the actual videos we make. They're a bit of carnage, but that's all the fun of it. Side note, when using hot glue, it gets everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. The one thing I hate about hot glue guns is how stringy hot glue is. It gets everywhere. The stand that my phone is on right now. Oh, by the way, yeah, I'm using my phone, so that's why the camera quality and the zooming and all that as well. But the phone, the camera that, or English, the stand that my phone is on right now is covered in strands of hot glue. So you see me trying to pick it off my fingers. It's all over everything. But hot glue is just so handy for doing projects the way I do them, just quick and, I would say quick and easy. They're not easy whatsoever, but quick and fast. Just, you know, I want to bash these out nice and quick, get it done in a day or a few hours, hopefully, because that's how quick these ideas come to my head and leave my head, you know, with work and with life in general. Sometimes having just enough time to get something done is all the time you have, maybe in that week or within them few days. So a hot glue gun comes in handy, PVA glue comes in handy, it all comes in handy for certain projects, for certain reasons. So this is me just tinkering about, kind of picking up pieces, seeing what I want to go where, what suits what. So as I see, and I pick the lids up, I'm like, these pieces might look like good for a gun. Now I'm thinking what type of gun, and then obviously the bottle caps is kind of extended, so I'm like a big turret. And that brought me back to looking at the pictures of the Land Raider, and I seen that Land Raider has the two turrets on either side of the tracks. And I said to myself, instead of having, I don't really want to have the same type of guns on either side of the tank, because that would make it look too much like a Land Raider. So let's have them on a big Gatling gun up the top. So we'll have two guns on either side of this big kind of air raid type of gun, like air defense. Just a big gun at the top. I just thought big guns look cool. So we'll have the big huge gun at the top, and that will be a dual weapon. So that's in place of the two guns that are on the side of the Land Raider, or four guns, however may you call it, plasma laser beams, whatever it is. And then we also have the big huge gun, like on the Baneblade, and that's the big tank gun that shoots the big mortars or whatever it may be. And we're gonna add that on as well. So more guns the better, you know, it's just guns of glory. So please be safe when doing this. So here you can see me using a Dremel. So if you don't know what a Dremel is, it's basically like a handheld drill, kind of a motorized handheld drill. You can use it for sanding, drilling, filing, lots of stuff, not filing, sandpapering, lots of stuff you can use with this. It's a hobby crafting maker's dream type of tool in that way. I would recommend everyone having something like this. You can get them for quite cheap. I think I got this one for 20 quid. It's a much bigger version, than you can get quite really smaller versions, but this was handy. I got it at the time, and it does the job for what I needed. So here we're just using it to, this is paper straws, believe it or not. I just had them lying around. They were just trash basically, but I just kept them because they're cylindrical. You buy this type of stuff on the internet off hobby shops for, you know, for decent money. So why not just keep a paper straw instead of just buying it, you know? Like, these things just come in handy. You go to McDonald's and other restaurants, fast food restaurants on the high street, and you get these paper straws, and I don't know about you, but a lot of the times I don't even use the straws. I just take off the lid and drink it out of the cup. And that straw will go in my pocket, and I'll bring that straw home and use it in a project at some stage. So, like, you know, don't think anything that you may just throw in the bin is useless. These things can come in handy, especially when you're a maker that does stuff like this or enjoys doing stuff like this. It saves you an awful lot of money later down the line. Now, don't get me wrong, actually buying certain products from certain places, that is worth it when need be for the actual ideal time, and for the money, and like, because stuff can speed up processes. For instance, green stuff, it's a very good material for getting very fine detail in sculpts, and this is something that I purposely use because of the quality, the bang for your buck type of outcome that I get. So different materials have their purpose. A paper straw is a paper straw. So using some hot glue here and just making sure we have a good bond there between the paper straw and this plastic turret bit that we have here. And this is going to act as the main barrel. So just remember, it's hot again, guys. So when you see me using my fingertip to spread this glue, don't get me wrong, it is hot glue. It does stick to your fingers and everything, but my hands are pretty used to the heat at this point, so we go with the flow. So using some more kebab sticks to stick to the gun barrels, and then sticking them to the other gun barrel that we stuck to the plastic bit. We're extending this to make our two guns off the one side of this turret. So that you have one barrel on top, one barrel on bottom, but then the main barrel that is like feeding the ammo, if that makes sense, or the rockets, or whatever it may be. And this is going to be the second one that we're going to do. So they're going to be mirrored on both sides. So I like the image I had in my head of this looked very cool, and the outcome of it is exactly what I was picturing. Maybe the supports, the kebab stick bits here, could have been a little bit shorter looking back at it. But listen, I like it. So we're just sticking them on the side of this lid here, this metal lid attached to a plastic lid. So I purposely went with the metal lid on top because I had that rim just around there, and that's going to act later down the line. You'll see we'll stick like a little hatch on top, and that's going to act just as like the rim of the hatch type of thing, and add this kind of perspective. And then the one at the bottom has ridges going up and down, so that's just going to add more characteristics to the whole turret type of structure we have going here. Also, it's going to be able to rotate, or that's what I wanted it to happen. So thinking ahead once again, thinking I wanted this to rotate, I thought about having these lines, and that will give the effect of it's like it's on like a spoke or a cog or something like that, a rotating mechanism. So as you see, we put a bit on the top there, and then quickly thought about changing it. So this is the little hatch that we end up sticking on. So we end up sticking this hatch on with the lid on top open, and then a little guy kind of came with this, or I don't know if he came with this or not, to be honest, but he looked like he came with it. So we end up sticking that little guy in the entrance or the exit kind of hole there. So he looks like he's coming out of it or controlling or whatever. But later down the line, we changed this guy out for something that fits more the outcome of the tank and the aesthetics of the whole tank. So as I build this, I keep getting more and more images and like picture of the outcome of this tank, how I want it to look. So as I said at the beginning, this is based on our army, the Mutant Bearers of Faith, which is a Chaos Word Bearers faction type breakaway. They're more demonic. They're full of demonic demons. They basically have a demonic demon soul inside them that has taken over their armor and half of their being, and has come bonded with them. So they've got this tank and kind of put bits together, and kind of like an orc would in a way, but it's an old style tank, and they go around. I was thinking like maybe the demons or whatever has infested the tank itself. So when I'm using this hot glue gun, I was thinking of not being as careful, not because I couldn't help it, but also and because I was adding to the stringy kind of gory texture of this chaos, carnage, word bearer kind of demonic looking tank. So it all works out in the end, or I hope it did anyway. I think it all looked good in the end. Stay tuned to part 3 of this series to see how it turned out in the end. So I really do think that the hot glue gun stringy effect added to the whole gore detail of this tank and didn't take away from the aesthetics, in my opinion. So as I seen there, we just stuck some more of that plastic sheet that we got from the misprint, and we're sticking that on the front here where the tracks are going to go. And that's basically just so we have a backing to stick the tracks on themselves. If we just stuck the tracks there, you could see straight through into the hollow, the middle of the tank. So we're using our hot glue just to stick that down to the backing here. Also, you seen we didn't snip the actual track there to bend it, we just bent it. I played around with one of these tracks that I had sitting around and did a little test kind of bend and cutting, and I was molding tracks. You see a video of that soon to come, it's in the works. So I already knew how malleable these tracks were, so at this point I knew bending it into shape with this little degree here, this little angle, would have been much more suitable than snipping the two kind of individual track pieces off and then re-gluing them. And then here you see some more little bits of track that were already cut off, and I'm just adding here, so it kind of adds to the look of the track going around the actual miniature itself, or the tank itself, not just vanishing into thin air. So this is the point in the project where we started to make the upper kind of bit of the turret gun, or the lower bit of the turret gun, shall I say. Not the actual weapon itself, but the compartment where the weapon mounts or sits upon. This will also act as like the base for the main tank barrel that is going to come as well. I do apologize for not knowing any of the terminology here, but bear with me. You know what I'm trying to say here, and if you don't know what I'm trying to say, at least you can see what I'm doing. So just looking around for more bits that we're trying to use here. Basically, I'm going for. I went for a look that. Well, I was going for a look that there's a door or a hatch, and these people who are inside, in order to get into the tank, they have to climb up on top and then go in this hatch and then go down into the tank itself, or that you can go up into the main turret gun, or that's just how you enter this tank. So that's why I'm trying to get a little hatch here, using the plastic card technique again, just to kind of hide them hinges, to make it look like the hinges are actually attached to the main body. And then some more plastic card just to hide big gaps. We could have used milliput or green stuff or any type of filler down the line, but there's absolutely hot glue everywhere. It's just so stringy. But yeah, we could have used anything later down the line to fill these gaps, but we just went with a bit of plastic card on the fly. We had it there, so we just used that. And here you see that bit that we use at the beginning that we're going to put on the turret. We're just trying to implement this into the tank somehow. So I was seeing where exactly it would look good to sit. So we kind of figured out we're going to have to cut this. So we're just snipping off a little bit here. And that will give us the correct height to have the angles that I'm looking for. I'm adding this here because the main turret is going to go here. And I'm looking more for the angle than I am the little lookout gun kind of thingy majigger here. So once I was happy with that angle, I just started getting some more plastic card, snipping bits off here and there, cutting it to size, and sticking it on the side of the bit we just stuck up on there. I'm so bad at speaking English. So we're using a hobby crafting knife here just to, or Stanley blade or whatever, you know, just using a knife here just to cut down, trim that to get our angles. Just be careful when using any type of blade or anything hot or anything like that, guys. Use it correctly. Even a scissors, just use everything correctly. Don't do what I do, just be careful, please. So using that technique where we kind of try bridge the gap, spreading that hot glue around with the hot glue gun with your finger. Don't use use a tool that you see me using. I have a little stick there, so like I use this stick to spread the hot glue. And that's how you should be using, like a little stick or some type of tool. So don't use your finger like I do, but I keep forgetting to use that little stick. And this is me just trying to figure out how I'm going to mount the top turret. So I was like, I could stick that there and then I could stick the turret on top of it. But then I didn't like the angle, the way it looked. Especially if I'm going to have it so someone, like the guy on the top turret sticking out the hatch there, can climb down the whole gun barrel or the shaft of the turret thing and then into this box and then out. Like, it wouldn't have looked correctly aesthetically. So I just wanted a flat piece. Makes it more aesthetic, more room, and it actually looks realistic to some point. This whole thing does not look realistic, but you have to make it somewhat of realism. You can't have a miniature sticking out the top where he can climb down a ladder, he can fit there, but then where he actually gets down to the bottom of the ladder, there's a tiny little hole and he can't go anywhere. So he's basically just stuck on this like little kind of trench gun thing. Like, fair enough, but how is, you know, how's that logistically, you know, gonna work? So far I'm quite happy at how this turned out. It turned out much better than I expected. So we're just gonna try find some type of way of attaching this to the actual miniature itself, or the model, or the tank. Terminology. So I'm actually gonna use some magnets to attach this, and in that way the actual top of the turret can come off and on. So apologies, I later figured out that file got corrupted, so we don't have the file of me attaching the magnets. But what I've done is I basically just stuck two small 22mm bases, I think it was, to the top of the box we made. Then I stuck some magnets, making sure the polarity was right, on top of one of the bases, and then I stuck the other base on top. And that way it was giving me a slippery surface at the very top, magnets in between, like a sandwiched in between the bases. And then I completed or repeated the process in the turret itself. So in that blue lid there, I basically put a layer of glue. Then I stuck the magnets down, making sure the polarity was correct, and then another layer of glue, and then this creates another surface that the magnets are in. And if I stick that on top of the turret gun that I done with the other magnets, with the bases on it, that should then be able to, with the magnetism, kind of spin around and not just fall off if it gets knocked. So apart from the stringing of the hot glue, you can see we're adding little bits of plastic card and other bits and bobs lying around, just to give the turret gun a little bit of texture, a little bit more detail and character. We don't want flat surfaces around here because tanks don't really have too many flat surfaces. Even though they do, they still have like rivets and everything going through it, so there's still details there. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys for sticking around this long. Thank you so much. We hit that 200 mark. Last time I checked, we were at 210 subscribers. I am so appreciative of each and every one of you guys and girls, and everyone who subscribes and likes and comments. Thank you, and stay tuned for more.